Hey everyone, welcome to another edition of The Bullet. My name is Paul Lathrop. I'm the Deputy Director of New Media for the Second Amendment Foundation. Joining me today, as he does every other Tuesday, Rob Morse of Self Defense Gun Stories. He's also one of my cohorts in crime that helps me out with the Polite Society podcast and is the guy behind the Slow Facts blog. Rob, before we get started today, I want to mention, you mentioned this on Polite Society last night, but I got it in an email blast. JPFO picked up a recent article of yours where you use your math skills to their best effect, man.
Well, these are math skills a little bit like counting by adding up Lego blocks. I ask the question, we know how many times we defend ourselves each year with a firearm. What we don't know, even approximately, is how many people did we save? Because when we ask large questions like that, we go, okay, hey, you gun owners, how many times did you defend yourselves? We forget that the gun owner's girlfriend also used a gun when he wasn't home. She used his gun. Oops, we forgot about her. Gun owners are typically over 21 years old. We forgot about the 19-year-old living in the home. You stopped a burglar who broke in when mom and dad were gone. So, yeah, I'll let you cut right to the chase. It's over $5 million a year. That's a lot of lives saved.
It is. It is. And every and we point this out a lot. Every gun law, every infringement on our rights cuts those numbers saved down.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does.
I want to start off by saying, as we usually do at the top of each show, if you want to comment on the show, we'll get your comments. We'll get them up in the air. If you're watching on the Polite Society podcast, Facebook, or YouTube feed, if you're catching us anywhere else and you want to get a comment, and you got to go to those feeds. We're on a lot of places. We're on Getter. We're on Rumble. We're looking at expanding into other areas. By the way, if you're watching us on either Facebook or YouTube and you want to suggest somewhere we should go live, I can go live to up to 5 more places through my restream that I use. I can go live a lot of places simultaneously. If there's somebody somewhere you would like us to see, put a comment in. Let us know where I should look into getting to. But let's get started, Rob. Unusual. We don't usually get into individual cases, but let's talk about Duluth, Minnesota, man.
Well, and isn't this interesting, bedfellows we have here? The Duluth NAACP asked the county prosecutor to drop charges against a felon. The felon turned in a relative's gun. Felons aren't supposed to be in possession of a firearm, okay? There are guns in the world. So what should happen when this felon served his time, now his job, he's rummaging through his brother's vehicle last July, his brother had died, and he finds a firearm. So he wraps it up, hides it, so keeps it out of plain sight, doesn't want to leave it, and then he calls his parole officer. Hey, I got a gun. I got it, my brother died. I'm in possession of it. I want to bring it in. I'm turning it in to you guys because I'm not allowed to have it. He was honest from the start. And by doing the right thing, he's being punished as if he were arrested in the commission of a crime with a firearm. What he was arrested and charged with felony possession of a firearm by the St. Louis County Attorney's Office. He faces a return to prison for a minimum of 5 years. Now, it doesn't serve justice when you prosecute people for doing the right thing. In this case, simply being accused is the penalty because he lost his job. He's been put on hold. The case was charged by a prosecutor named Tony Rubin. He's the son of the former St. Louis County Attorney Mark Rubin. Mark Rubin hired his son, and that was controversial back in 2019. Yeah, the kid's not ready for prime time. This guy's biggest sin, well, Paul, you mentioned this point. He covered up the gun with a sweatshirt. We don't know whether that was responsible or not. It certainly does not require him to be charged. Now, you can do an investigation. By all means, see if this guy's story hangs together. But really? What do you think, Paul? I can't hear you, Paul.
That's because I had muted myself. I was doing some typing. Uh, um, you're right. This guy's biggest sin was wrapping the gun in a sweatshirt. And he's doing exactly what anti-gun prosecutors want to happen. He's trying to keep guns off the streets. And this particular gun, he didn't want getting into the wrong hands. He wanted to do the right thing. And all of a sudden, like you said, man, the job is gone, and possibly going back to prison for 5 years. Look, you can't have it both ways. Either if you're going to want guns off the streets, don't prosecute people when they try to turn them in.
The guy is working in a federal factory building tanks for the U.S. government.
Mm-hmm.
So he probably has a security clearance. Pretty low level, I bet, given a felony in his history. This is stupid. This is posturing. The taxpayers should call up and call the prosecutor's names and see if they can get him removed. And I'm from a guy who's pretty law and order.
Oh, me too. And this one, it burns me for that. This sounds like a prosecutor trying to lay a bunch of victories. I've won 90% of the cases,
Right.
or 98%, or whatever he's trying to say.
Exactly.
I've won all these cases, and big deal if you're putting people who are trying to do the right thing in prison. Let's go down south. South of Duluth, Minnesota, which doesn't take much.
That's pretty easy, right? Okay.
Let's go to Nashville.
There's a bill allowing teachers to carry on school grounds, and it's set for the Tennessee House Thursday. Amid the chaos of the Covenant School mass shooting and the subsequent expulsion of 2 Democrat lawmakers from the House of Representatives, they're finally getting to some business as usual in the Assembly. A bill that would allow teachers to be armed in all public schools. It was pushed through a House committee. It's getting one step closer to passage. I read through the bill. Paul, you have some comments. I want you to go first.
All right. My first thing is that this bill would make the teachers say, "Mother, may I," not only to the state for a concealed carry permit first, which Tennessee's now constitutional carry, but they still would have to go get a carry permit, and then they have to go, "Mother, may I," to the school board. And most school boards, by and large, are left-leaning. So there aren't going to be many school boards that are going to allow it to start with. I'm more towards, if you've got a concealed carry permit, have at.
I like this bill because it puts the burden of school security on the school board. Okay, that's where that burden belongs, because those are the people where I can walk down to the Tuesday meeting and going, what are you doing to keep my grandson safe? And if I don't like the answer, I can raise a heck of a stink.
Yeah.
But this bill is badly written, and that it forces inapplicable training on school staff. We don't need teachers to be trained like cops. I've taken 3 of those security classes that are designed for school staff. Look, we don't need the cops to make arrests and transport, we don't need the teachers to make arrests and transport prisoners. We need teachers trained like first responders. Stop the bad guys, stop the bleeding. We absolutely know what works to make school staff into first responders. And it's not to repeat the police officer standards training for 40 hours every year. In this case, I think it's legislatures doing posturing and listening to police union.
Well, and let's my my concern is who's paying for that training. 40 hours of training, you're looking at, depending on who is giving the training,
Right.
you're looking at between instruction costs, ammo costs, if there is any live shooting. If not, why train? But you're looking at probably about $1,000 a year for the privilege when it ought to be the right to carry and defend your students.
And the law said that the district could not pay for either guns or ammo. So
Yeah,
this to me sounds like maybe the police unions getting their hand in the mix.
that would not shock me in the least.
We have more coming out of Tennessee.
Yep.
Do we have any comments yet?
Other than just George, we got some check-ins coming in, and then we got George. I don't know that this is really about what we've been talking about, but he says, stay away from St. Louis. Their government is nuts. So,
I think he's thinking St. Louis, Missouri.
yes.
Okay. Let's go on. Tennessee Governor Bill Lee calls for order of protection law to keep guns away from dangerous individuals. He said he's signed an executive order aimed at strengthening background checks for firearm purchases, in addition to calling for lawmakers to pass an order of protection law. To me, that sounds a lot like red flags, to keep guns away from people who present a danger to themselves or others. So they're a danger to themselves or others, but you're not going to use existing law, Governor Lee? He's asking the General Assembly to bring forward the law. He told reporters at a police precinct in Nashville, a new, strong order of protection law will provide the broader population safety from those who are in danger to themselves or the larger population. This is our moment to lead and to give the people of Tennessee what they deserve in front of the TV cameras. Oh my God. Virtue signaling by a Republican governor. I saw something today that I thought was brilliantly phrased in its brevity. The red flag laws work. We've seen these mass murderers. If they got their guns through an FFL and passed a national instant background check, then gun control failed. If they didn't get their guns through a FFL and a background check, then gun control failed. Guys, we've got hundreds of people in your state every year. They're all over the newspapers. Guns control fails every day. And in this case, a Republican governor is proposing more of the same.
A Republican governor, and that's mind-blowing to me. Coming from those who are supposed to be respectful of your Second Amendment rights. And we've gone on and on and on about red flag laws in the past. I mean, to put it most succinctly I can, the only thing the red flag law does is arrest the gun.
Exactly. Is at best misplaced. If you don't have any more comments, we've got a comment here from the Washington Examiner on a Rasmussen poll.
Well, hang on just a second. David on the Facebook side checking in. It's called an injunction or a no contact order if you're in a relationship. You know what? They do have those. They are still, however, just pieces of paper.
Right.
They don't protect anybody. They're also called protection orders, depending on your
Orders of
jurisdiction.
protection, right? Now, what they do help with, Paul, let's be clear. If you're in a domestic violence situation, get that piece of paper.
Yes.
Because now your ex can't be within 500 feet of you by a judge's order. On the other hand, you say, well, she told me to come over. I said I couldn't because of the judge's order. I'm leaving the goods, the child, the whatever, here at the precinct. You guys do the handoff.
Well, and the other good, I'm going to say, yes, get the protection order. and arm yourself if there's a real threat.
Yes,
That
ma'am.
way, if the bad person in the relationship does decide at 2 a.m. to break down the door and you're forced to defend yourself, you've got that piece of paper on your side saying, look, I warned you this could happen.
Right. It is a wonderful first step. You know how a concealed carry permit says, "Hi, card carrying good guy,
Yep.
clean criminal record." In this case, you've taken that the next step, saying, "I'm a card carrying good guy, clean criminal record, and here's a bad guy that shouldn't be near me."
Yep.
Kind of makes the legal job a lot easier at the end.
It does. It does. Let's talk about that Rasmussen poll, man.
Okay. Most of us blame the brain, not the gun, for mass murders. Despite Joe Biden's efforts to blame guns for mass shootings, most people are still of the thought that it's a mental problem and not a gun problem. In this mass recent report survey, it was released between these two mass shootings that we've had recently. When given a choice of 6 reasons, 40% of us chose mental health. Just 29% of us said that the reason for the mass shootings was too easy access to firearms. That original article is carried in the Washington Examiner. What do you think about it?
I think this is just more proof that we are making inroads, if not outright winning the hearts and minds of the American people. People are not watching CNN anymore. They're not watching MSNBC. They're watching podcasts. They're listening to podcasts. They're making up their own minds, because if you consume mass media, and I do every day, it is all anti-gun all the time, even among supposedly conservative media outlets like Fox News. They're becoming increasingly anti-rights and anti-gun. This is just, people are saying, look, I know what the truth is. This ain't it.
I have to agree with you. I think we're smarter than our legislators. And that's not calling them idiots. It's simply saying, look, we the people have vastly more experience than any legislator could possibly have. We know what reality looks like to a detail that they can't imagine. Okay, are guns the problem? No, your kid was a screw up from the get-go. The next one, Paul, I'm going to leave in your court. It's your expertise.
Yeah. Well, I do a daily news search when I'm getting set to do these, and I try and find stories relating to gun rights. And this one popped up in my news search today. This is off of Billboard.com. Yeah, if you grew up in the 80s like I did, I'm born in the 60s and, found your musical tastes in the 80s, Dee Snider is somebody you know, and Billboard is the same people that did Casey Kasem's American Top 40 every week. At any rate, so they're on top of the political pulse as well, apparently. But Dee Snider isn't going to take it anymore. This article starts. The Twisted Sister singer says the time has come to stand up to those who will use his band's most famous song to promote conspiracy theories. QAnon uses it all the time as their battle cry, Snyder tells Billboard about the long-running conspiracy theory that posits that the world is run by a shadowy group of Satan-worshipping pedophiles that allegedly includes prominent Democrat politicians and Hollywood celebrities. And people are like, Dee, do you support QAnon? No, I don't, so I need to speak out. He has an explanation for why he recently agreed to a fan's request to use his band's 1984 Billboard Hot 100 number 21 hit. Couldn't even make it to number one, dude. We're not going to take it as their anthem and decades-long fight to ban the type of military-style assault weapons frequently used in mass shootings in the U.S. And this is the quote that burns me. So when it came to tying the song to intelligent gun control, Snyder, a proud gun owner, said was simple. Yeah, I support this cause. It's an important one. In fact, when the request came in, Snyder's exact words in an enthusiastic tweet were, quote, I am a gun owner. Hell yeah, you can use We're Not Gonna Take It as your anthem. Assault weapons were never meant for anything but combat. This is classic ultra-liberalism right here. I got mine, screw you. That's what it is. I'm a gun owner, but I don't think anybody else should have them.
And who really cares what some aging almost rocker thinks about
What is being done
gun
with
control?
Yeah, and
Or
what's
what?
being...
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, you were explaining to me that the way royalty rights work, it's really hard for him to tell somebody they can't use his music.
That's right.
True?
ASCAP is the people that or ASCAP and BMI are the people that license music. And basically, through the rules that ASCAP and BMI have, if I could pay the money to BMI and ASCAP, I could play We're Not Going to Take It Anymore on Polite Society podcast, and to heck with D. Snyder, whether he likes it or not. He gives up his rights where his music can be played when he signs those royalty checks.
Interesting.
That's why when Trump has a rally, he plays whatever he feels like, and not what specific artists say, please use my music or please don't use my music. He just plays what he wants to play, and there's nothing the artists can do about it. So D. Snyder, if you don't like QAnon using it, tough. Then you don't sign your royalty checks anymore.
I have to point out a factual error. Most mass murders are committed with a handgun. Mm-hmm. Most armed assaults committed by criminals are committed with a handgun. Most victims of firearms are injured with a handgun. On the other hand, most of us who defend ourselves also use a handgun. Anyway.
Although I will say for home defense, it's hard to beat an AR. Assault weapon. The AR is the AR. I have a few of them staged throughout my house, depending on where I am. No matter where I'm at, I can get to one, and I would rather have 30 really darn good rounds than somewhere between 8 and 15 handgun rounds.
Okay.
So,
another thing tangentially related to Snyder.
Yeah.
And this whole issue of, there's a tidal wave of public shootings. I go, have you seen Chicago? Do you actually read the news coming out of there? We get 20 people shot a weekend. That's average. There is a mass murder assault every weekend in Chicago. They don't put the bad guys in jail. I almost said words that would get us taken off the air, messed with the police so that there isn't a justice system in Chicago. My gosh, if you care about stopping violence, don't wait for some trans nut in Tennessee or Kentucky or Maryland also. Stop it every weekend in Chicago, please.
That also brings up one more thing that I want to. The media, and we're a little guilty of it too, but the media has moved from mass murder to mass shootings. Anytime, and it's going to get worse, because right now all that has to happen is for 3 or more people to be hit, not die. The 3 more people get hit. The classic. Let me back up here. The classic definition of mass murder is 4 people dead, not including the killer. That's a mass murder. Right. Now, a mass shooting is 3 people hit. Pretty soon, it's going to be somebody pulled the trigger 4 times, and didn't hit a thing,
Right.
that's still a mass shooting.
Right. So we're diluting down the terms in order to jack up the statistics and get more clicks. You and I don't do that. But do we know some media outlets that do that?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
There have been 4 mass murders this year. 2 of them in
Right.
California.
Right.
And this claim there's been 136, I think I seen earlier today, was what they were saying, mass shootings this year. They're trying to change the narrative. They're not trying. They are changing the narrative.
Well, when you've got billions of dollars, you can do that. What I do when people say that, I go, name them. And they go, where'd they happen? Well, there was the guy. I go, okay, but that doesn't fit your description. That's not what the FBI calls a mass murder. You know that, right? Because you studied this? Okay. So, right. We have to be informed. This republic needs people who need citizens who are more than headline surfers. If you meet them, our listeners have to educate them. Thank you.
Absolutely. Let's get this one in there. When the Second Amendment was written, the military used the same guns as the civilian population, and civilians use the same guns as the military. And that's exactly right, Big John 410, because the military used the civilians' weapons they owned before they joined the military.
John,
that could
thank you.
not happen now.
That's a brilliant point. Thank you. Paul, I keep saying that, and then I meet some insane long-range shooter or these guys who are just blindingly fast doing USPSA. Now, I understand they're military marksmanship teams that are just stunning, but competitors have led the way with training and equipment that is way beyond what run-of-the-mill military uses. To me, it's a measure of wealth that we can get people who are so fanatically dedicated to a goal.
Yeah, it's the equipment they use compared to the equipment you and I use for general self-defense is very much like a Prius versus a Porsche.
Maybe like a Prius versus a race car.
Yeah. And their expertise is like a dedicated race car driver who's had 20 years of racing experience versus a truck driver who drives a big 18-wheeler and is not paid to go fast. So, yeah, it's wide differences there.
I guess what I want to point out is the military has some great attributes. Necessarily being the cutting edge of firearms technology isn't one they've earned.
Weapons technology. Now, firearms, nah. But weapons, yeah, if you're talking,
smoking holes?
Yeah. F-35 Raptors. If you're talking, I'm trying to remember the name of the latest howitzer that can adjust the trajectory of the projectile in
Excalibur
the air.
shell.
Yeah.
Excalibur shell, yeah.
Yeah, that's so far beyond. But yeah, absolutely. But the M16 is still basically very close to the same rifle that was introduced in the early 1960s, late 1950s.
Yeah, I was going to say.
So
we have 2 minutes. Do we have any more comments?
Yes, we do. Carrie Ann, who is on with us quite often on Monday nights, she goes, "Yep, more false stats for their agenda." Yeah, going back to the changing of the definitions. Yeah. Yeah, I think that we're pretty close, man. Let's go ahead. We're less than a minute left to the bottom of the hour. Tell everybody about Self-Defense Gun Stories and anything else you want to plug, man.
I will, but you have to tell us who's going to be on tomorrow night. I host the Self-Defense Gun Stories podcast. I try and keep that to 20 minutes. A snack food of a podcast comes out once a week. I co-host the Polite Society podcast. The host is right there, Paul Lathrop. My blog is at slowfacts.wordpress.com. 2,000 articles, just dropped another one this week. My writing is picked up at AmmoLand Shooting Sports News and at OpsLens. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you for coming on today, man. On my end, tomorrow is Dan Wass. Dan will be joining us to talk about the stories of the day. And a quick reminder that starting this coming Saturday, the start time for the weekend edition of The Bullet is moving to 5 p.m. Central Time. You know what I probably should do is I probably should just move it to 6. That way it's Monday through Saturday, tune at 6 p.m. Central Time. I think I actually am going to do that. So, yeah, let's on the fly, I'm making the call right now. Saturday moves from noon to 6 p.m. Central Time. So Monday through Saturday, tune in here, 6 p.m. Central Time to get, well, Polite Society on Monday, The Bullet Tuesday through Saturday. That is going to do it for today. Until tomorrow, everybody, thanks for watching.